Thanks the lady. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm riding for one reason. It's been a tumultuous week. My phone is ringing off the hook from calls about gaming. And I've told everybody that called me that I'm holding out for one change. That change on the minority language got to say black. If it doesn't say black, it won't pass in Jefferson County. I guarantee you, because everybody watching now saying that we killed one lottery bill the last time it passed the House because blacks wouldn't get anything out of it. They're not going to vote for it as it said black in that language, in minority language. Because they said African American one time, they went and found somebody from South Africa and gave them a contract. So therefore, they're saying they want the word black in the minority language or it won't be a bill. We can care anything about it or resolutions. If that kills the bill, let it die. So I'm telling you right now, it didn't pass. Last time, we had a lottery bill passed before. It didn't pass in Jefferson County about enough for all the blacks didn't vote for it. It didn't pass in Mobile. So therefore, I'm guaranteeing you that we're going to have to do it right this time. It's the only chance we got. If we don't do it at the right time, if it doesn't say black, if that kills the bill, it ought to be dead. Because we're not going to sit back and just work at a casino or work for a lottery. We want to have ownership in some things that we do in this state. It's only right and fair, so I'm guaranteeing you that you can pass it in here, but John Q. Pillar not going to pass it outside without any guarantee that they're going to get something out of it. And they're tired of getting said minority, this, minority, that, and when it ends up, they get nothing. End up with white women and Indians, everybody get in before they get it. If you want to divide the minority percentage up, say a certain percentage go to black, not African American, because that's when they go to South Africa to get somebody. That's what they did last time. So I'm just passing the word. Don't get upset. If that kills the gambling bill, so let it die. There's already been 2 lawsuits filed anyway, right now. I know one filed Friday. Not by, y'all know, everybody probably know it anyway. So I can guarantee you that all I'm telling you is that let's be fair about this thing. We don't want to just work at a casino or work for a lottery. What have ownership is something involving the lottery casino. Because the black folks are not broke. Everybody is not broke. They got money they want to put up and have ownership in something. And be cut out from the start is not fair to black people. And I guarantee you they will not go to the polls to vote for it. And I told them I'd make this early on today and vote for a lottery where they ought to be cleaning up the floors and mopping and doing stuff like that. They want to be part ownership of businesses like everybody else. So therefore, I'm just passing the word along that a lot of us are going to be voting no.
And the gentleman's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. All right, chair lady recognizes the lady from Montgomery for personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm still new at this, and last week I asked and received a beautiful letter, a resolution from LSA, but I got here and was expecting to see it on the Rules Committee, and it's not there. It's HR 257, and I guess I'm just not sure if that means it's going to come up again Thursday, or will it come out next time, Sine Day? How does that work?
Well, it just depends on the timing of the subcommittee that reviews the resolutions. And have you spoken to Chairman Rowe in the subcommittee about the resolution?
Not yet. So
I think that'd be your next action that would be taken.
I will call Chairman Rowe. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate the information.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, and the chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore, for personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question. We've got a resolution to be considered today, and it's a resolution of local application. Now, the last time when the bill was up, I think it got 4 or 5 votes when it came on the local application, and therefore it went statewide. My question is, will there be a voice vote on this resolution? or will we vote by machine on this resolution?
Well, if it's a resolution, it would be considered under a voice vote.
And the reason I'm asking, because I don't think, once we voted on this local application before, we got 4 votes. Now, if it's a voice vote, it seems as though that the person who put this resolution here is going against the body to sell something that came by a voice vote, by a machine vote. I know it. Mm-hmm. You don't come back like this. We already voted on it. You come back with a resolution to undo the vote.
All right, to clarify with you, Representative Moore, that I was thinking about the passage of the resolution. They're already passed. So we're dealing with now the resolution of local application.
Correct.
Those will, yes, ma'am, those will have to be a recorded vote.
Okay, I appreciate that because I saw it here, and I know the last time with this particular, it was a bill or whatever, we voted on it by machine.
Yeah, and we always do. It's very unusual normally that we have resolutions with this attachment to it. So because of that, and I'm sorry I had to get myself up to
I
speed on
appreciate
where we
that.
were. Okay, but
Okay,
this
thank
will be recorded vote.
Okay, thank you.
All right. As a matter of fact, on these resolutions, we're probably, since we are voting on that, we probably want to have somebody make comment about them to make sure the members understand.
Okay, I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Tuscaloosa, Representative Wingo. Personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could we have the resolution read, please, at the appropriate time?
Well, we haven't gotten to any resolutions.
Okay, so what are we voting on? What are we talking
We're not voting on anything right now. We're on personal privilege.
Okay. Have we, yeah.
We haven't even called that order of business up yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. All right, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Hale County, Representative Howard, on a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Members, we've got a bill that essentially would put a lot of poor people in my district out of a job. Every last one of you know that I would not vote to put anybody in your district out of work. I have spent my time in this body begging everybody that I could, everybody that I saw, every CEO to invest in rural West Alabama. And now we have people that have invested their hard-earned money, taking a chance to create a business in my community. It doesn't happen often. The audacity of anybody to introduce a bill that would just summarily execute people, put people out of work. The last governor that did it said, well, we're gonna send DHR in and help them get some food stamps. You wouldn't have to send DHR in if you didn't close their job down. The arrogance to create winners and losers in this state. The arrogance to say who can and who can't have a business. I don't care what kind of business it is. It could be a pie factory. We can't tell people, and we should not be in the business of shutting people down. It doesn't matter to me how you feel about gaming, because I have my own separate issues with gaming. It's not even about gaming with me. We can't legislate how people spend their money. We can't do that. This country is about free enterprise. I was limping around here. I was limping because I was able to do what I love to do, cattle farm. Nobody told me I couldn't do it. I would ask that y'all think very deeply about this bill. What if somebody went in your district and said, no, you can't do business? You should not do that. This is not about gaming. I think as a body, we could come up with a lot better bill, but I'm going to respect your districts, and I hope you respect mine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And yes, sir. Chair thanks the gentleman. All right, we are still on moments of personal privilege, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Carnes, for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this is a unique day here. I got a message yesterday at 4:30 about changing a major bill that we'd been following since the pretty much the beginning of this session and probably for the last 2 years. And I still have not had time to really study this bill like I wanted to. However, it's about, in a matter of time here, going to be before us. So I am encouraging everybody in this chamber to just go very diligently about what we're doing today, because everybody knows that we can get somewhat in a mode that we think what we do here does not count. But actually and absolutely what we do here counts. And people back home are watching us, they're depending on us, and they're expecting us to do what we were elected to come here and do. And that's what I plan to do today. And I can look out among my peers and say, I think you guys are here for the same thing. So I want to urge everyone to be very, very, very careful on everything that we do today. And we will be able to come to the microphone because that's part of our procedures and policies and rules that we've adopted. And I plan to come here as often as I can to talk about as much of this bill that I have a great deal of interest in when it comes up, and it will be up after a while. I can't say exactly when, but I know that at some point today it will be up on the board. And when it gets on the board, I think there will be quite a few questions. I know there'll be a lot of amendments, and I would urge you to carefully consider each of these amendments, because the bill that's coming, the number one on the calendar today, needs some more tender loving attention. And so I think these amendments.
And the gentleman's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. The chair thanks the gentleman. All right, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Elmore for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to break my moment of personal privilege apart into two different issues that we're focusing on today.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you.
800-pound gorilla that's in the room is the gaming. And I want to tag on to what Representative Howard said earlier about doing away with people's jobs. I can feel for him and what he's going through in Greene County, I guess, where we have a lot of paper bingo. The gaming bill that we're going to be looking at is going to pick the winners and losers there, and it ain't going to be the independent, the private money and the private investors. It's going to be the gaming cartel. It's going to be who's going to win that picking and winners and losers. And we can't afford to get into that kind of thing with picking one area of our state against another area and doing away with those jobs, particularly in that area where jobs are scarce and hard to come by. So I want to empathize with that position too. And then on the medical marijuana bill, I am deeply concerned about where this takes our state. I'm really concerned that I just finished reading this bill. In fact, I'm still about 10 pages short of being able to read it. Have not been able to read the amendments yet. And we're going to be asked to vote on this bill without many, if not most of our members have not read the bill thoroughly and studied the bill with the right amount of due diligence. It takes this something this big and this far-reaching that's going to change our state forever. There's no going back from where we're about to go right now. There's no going back. Look at the other states that have done it. You can see that. It's a one-way street. It goes in a real strict order. Once you approve the medical marijuana, then 3 years later you're voting on recreational marijuana, and then you're off to the races with all the consequences that go with that. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm concerned that we have so many contradictions that I've already read in the parts of the bill that I haven't had time to read so far. The contradictions about who's going to do what and what are how they're going to carry out that responsibility, who's in charge, what's it going to cost, what kind of revenues would you expect. We have not seen a fiscal note on this bill. I hope everybody in the House noticed that. We don't have a fiscal note to give us any kind of an idea or an estimate of what the revenue stream might be from this to the state and what the cost on the other side might be for us to carry out those responsibilities with this new commission. So all those things are very concerning to me. And then we look at the social side of this medical marijuana bill, and you can't argue, excuse me, you can't argue with the data that's coming out of states that have already been down this road, and they've gone from medical marijuana to social marijuana. There's no question that their costs have gone up dramatically. Cost in lives, more traffic deaths, more DUIs, all those things that happen once you make that recreational step with marijuana legalized. All that changes into cost, the cost side of the ledger, and we're going to be faced with that once we face this. So I'm concerned about all those things and many more. I hope, like Representative Carnes, that you've thought thoroughly and will think for these next hours that this is a serious decision that you'll carry with you to your grave. If we pass this, you will know this, and you'll also be proud if you're on the other side that you helped block this to go forward in the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson County, Representative Wheeler. Personal privilege. Representative Wheeler. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, a little slow getting here. You know, this has been an interesting few days over this past weekend, having a special order calendar in front of us and opportunity to study the bills on that calendar. And then about 4:30 yesterday, we get a substitute to a major bill that's going to impact the state greatly. Some say positive, some say negatively. But I hope each of you take this as an opportunity to really look at what's going on. Been a lot of lobbying on both sides of this issue. I've put a lot of personal study into this. I've been on Zoom meetings several times with different groups across the country. I've consulted numerous medical professionals, and strangely enough, a lot are for it and a lot are opposed to it. But when I talk to my constituents and when I do an informal poll of my Sunday school class, I have a very real sense of where they want me to be. And I plan to do that to the best of my ability. I hope each of you takes an opportunity to thoroughly think about what we're about to do and the impact it may have on the state of Alabama for generations. It's not, there's a lot of times there's not any easy way to do this, but we were all elected for a purpose to come down here and represent our constituents. And I hope that your vote accurately reflects the sentiments of your constituency, not some outside group, not some big money organization, but just remember what you're about to embark on. You know, there's going to be a lot of pressure to do one thing or another, but I think it's important that you really determine what is best and how your constituents would want you to vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. The chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Gavane. This is personal privilege.
I'm going to hold my comments until we get further into the calendar. I had just come out of from off a call with a client, and I'm not quite ready and prepared for my point of personal privilege right now. I guess I've been hearing though that many of these the members here have been speaking, I'm assuming, about their positions on the marijuana bill, I'm assuming. So I don't know if that's what it was, but I'll come back. Hopefully you'll call me back up when we get into the calendar. Thank you.
All right, and the chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Cherokee, Representative Shaver, for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's very rarely that I get up to speak on a bill. And we've got a lot of issues to face in these final days, a lot of big issues. We're attempting to do more in these final days than happens in a lot of entire sessions. A lot of heavy lifting bills, a lot of serious issues that will affect our state for years to come, decades to come, generations to come. And I take these issues very seriously. And I try to study these bills, and I know most of us do. Listen to our constituents. Listen to the pros and cons on both sides of the issues. You know, there's rarely an issue that, you know, I can't learn something from the other side. I usually do. Sometimes I come in, I hate to give my opinion right off the bat when I'm asked, how are you going to vote this way or that way on an issue, because when I listen to the debate, I learned something that I didn't know. And I'm still learning. And I'm still listening to both sides of the debate. And I try to vote yes. You know, unless it's going to negatively affect my district, or unless I'm philosophically opposed to it, or if I feel that it would be really detrimental to our state as a whole to be enacted, I try to be a yes. And like I said, you know, it's rare that I ever speak against a bill. And we bring a lot of bills, and there's some issues that we present that we really care about. We put a lot of time and effort into them. I know I do. And I know that the sponsors of the bills that we're going to be voting on very shortly, I know they feel the same way and they do the same. But, you know, it's been an interesting first quadrennium. And I have people call me to say, I can't believe the things that y'all are having to vote on. This is Alabama. This is not California. And I say, yeah, that's what I thought too. Yet here we are, addressing issues that I didn't expect to be, and some that I did. But I know that we'll all be listening today to see what we can learn and make the best decision for our districts.
All right, and the chair thanks the lady.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jackson County, Representative Haynes, for personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm like some of my colleagues before me here talking about the medical marijuana. We just got this bill yesterday. I got it about 5 o'clock. And I'm still reading on it. Got up 2 o'clock this morning. Couldn't sleep. Started reading on it. Drove down here, a 4-hour drive. Still reading on the bill, still picking through it. It's a whole lot to digest. And then we have a gaming bill coming up. I think it's for Thursday. But what really puzzles me is we worry about medical marijuana, we worry about gaming, but there's so many issues out here that the people of this state are more concerned about that we don't address. We have constitutional carry. We have Common Core. We have Second Amendment Preservation Acts. I mean, people of this state are more worried right now about their rights than they are about gaming. I think gun rights is right at the top, right along with Common Core. And another issue right now that's not being addressed for the people, that this body's not even looking at, is the vaccine issue. There's a lot of people in this state right now that's worried about mandated vaccines. And there's bills that have been presented, that have been introduced to address these problems. And I just cannot figure out for the life of me why this body doesn't tackle issues that concern the people the most. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marion County, Representative Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just 2 or 3 notes I made as I was sitting here listening to my colleagues. Agree with everything that they've said thus far, and I think Representative Shaver may have hit the nail on the head the most directly. That I stand in amazement in this session as I listen to the bills that we're preparing to debate. And I do wonder if I'm a member of the Alabama legislature or the California legislature or the Oregon legislature or the Colorado legislature, where I think many of us in this chamber would agree we're now debating issues in the state of Alabama that we never thought would come before this body. There are very few times in our life when we're at what I would call a seminal moment, when we're standing at a point in our time in this body when we fully realize the moment that's before us until it's too late. And I feel like we are at that moment. with some of the bills that we're going to be addressing over the next few days. Many of you know that I will be a grandfather for the first time starting in July, and I'm really looking forward to that blessing that the Lord has chosen to send our way. But keeping that in mind, I can't help but wonder, as his grandfather, what message will I be sending him? What message will I be sending other grandchildren that I hope and pray will follow? What Alabama am I going to be leaving my grandchildren? What legacy am I going to be leaving behind for the generation that comes behind me, should the Lord tarry long enough for another generation to come and follow the ones that are in this body today? I respect everybody in this chamber, and I consider so many of you on either side of the aisle close personal friends. I see members of both the Republican and Democratic body. Their caucus is sitting before me today that I have come to think of as dear friends, and they could call me at any time, day or night, with any need they might have. And I would promise you I would drive as quickly as the state of Alabama would allow me to drive to get there to help them. So all I'm asking, out of all due respect to my colleagues today, is just take a moment before you cast your vote on these bills that are going to be coming before this body today and the remainder of the week. Say a prayer. I know we're here for our constituents, but eventually we're going to give an account to a lot higher authority than our constituents. And I would encourage everyone to remember that. And I've said from the beginning, some folks don't like to hear it, but if this body will rule and make decisions and pass laws with the next 4 words in mind, most everything else will take care of itself. Thus saith the Lord. And if we'll remember those words, I think we'll all be much better served. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark County, Representative Jackson. Personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the recognition. I am so delighted to hear our colleagues talking about the issues of Alabama. We've been talking about them for all year. Nobody since 2010, nobody been listening. See, the same people live on your side of town, live on my side of town. They're Alabamians. And now all of a sudden today they got an issue because people want the same that other states want. And I think that's a good thing. That we're not always 49th and 51st when it comes to issues of life. Now, there's been some good reports and good research on the issue that I've been listening to, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to medical marijuana. If doctors prescribe it, I don't think they'll be like opioids. I don't think people will OD on it. I don't think they will get hooked on it like so many people have. And I'm glad to hear the debate because Alabama needs to come out of the dark ages. We just can't keep living like yesterday and expect to be progressive on today. It doesn't work that way. So when it comes to gun issues, Constitution, Second Amendment right, but you'll take away my First Amendment right. You don't want me to protest. You take away my voting right. You're suppressing that. But when it comes for medical reasons, issues of life, health, we ought to be together on making people's lives better. And we've so oppressed them so long until we think that we're going to keep our knee on their neck until it's all over. But I want to tell us, things are changing. People are waking up in this state, and they want what's best for them, not what you say is best for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. The chair recognizes Representative Gray for a moment of personal privilege. Okay. Be up here on the 6th.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir.
I just want to suspend the rules for time-sensitive resolution. And this resolution is just to commend the Opelika High School track and field team for winning the 6A state championship. And this is their 11th one since '98. And I would like all the members to be co-sponsors.
All right, let's take this in order then. The first order motion would be to suspend the rules for the time-sensitive resolution. And Representative Gray, why don't you come on down while we're addressing that? Are there any objections to the suspension of the rules? All right, hearing none, then we've got the rules suspended. Now, members, you heard the explanation of the resolution to recognize the state championship winners. And all in favor of that resolution signify by saying aye. All opposed. All right, and the resolution is adopted. And now he wants to allow the House to be co-sponsors on this resolution. Are there any objections to the House being co-sponsors? Any objections? All right, hearing none, then the House will be listed as co-sponsors, and the resolution is given to the clerk for the paperwork. And yeah, Representative Gray, you have any other comments you want to make? We've got everything passed for you.
Oh, just thank the body, that's it.
Okay, and congratulations to the team. All right, now the chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Mayor Jones, for a
Thank you, Mr.
personal
Speaker.
privilege.
I just ask that the entire body join us on a resolution mourning the death of Mr. Charles Buskey, Jr., who is the brother of former state representative James Buskey, who died in a fire on last week. And I would ask that the entire House be co-sponsors of the resolution.
All right, and you want to make a motion also to suspend the rules to get the resolution up? Because
Yes.
it's time sensitive, I understand.
Suspend the rules.
Okay, all right. All right, members, the motion before us is to suspend the rules to bring a resolution up. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Any objections? All right, and hearing none, then the rules are suspended, and now you've heard explanation of the resolution on the death of former Representative James Buskey's brother. And all in favor of that resolution signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, and the resolution is adopted. Now the next thing, are there any objections to having the House put down as co-sponsors? All right, hearing none, the House will be listed as co-sponsors on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, sir. The chair thanks the gentleman. All right. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Winston County, Representative Wadsworth, for personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the
Yes, sir.
point of personal privilege.
Yes, sir.
I don't know where I am on this bill, and I tell you why. This bill went through judiciary and it went through health, and it's a tight bill. However, I've got constituents in my area, and particularly I have a attorney that you went through 12 years of high school, 4 years of college, and then 3 years of law school, that she has an epileptic child and they was having about 300 seizures a day. We passed a bill a couple of years ago to allow CBD oil. Through UAB, the child went through that program, and she had to drop out as being an attorney to take care of her child. But after she went through, she did the CBD oil program, she was able to get that to go back to work and work. But she actually works for an assistant DA who's opposed to the bill. So I don't know where I'm at. I've also had another constituent that went to for the trials, and when they went for those trials, they were not eligible because they had 3 different types of seizures. And I do want to look, and I'm having to balance this stuff out, and I honestly don't know if all the DAs that signed that letter who was opposed to it actually read the bill, because this bill is a tight bill. But I'm going to look at it and listen to more debate, and I'm just going to have to make a heartfelt decision on which way I lean, and I'm not going to base it on one way or the other, but I'm going to make on what I think is the best thing for our people. And but that's all I wanted to say on this bill.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. The chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Gavan, for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
I started to sit this one out, but I've been down here almost 12 years. I never thought I would rise before this body to say that I was peacock proud and hallelujah happy that I would live to see the day that the Republican Party in this House would actually get up to filibuster on points of personal privilege over one bill. I am so happy today, I don't know what to do. I thank y'all for this opportunity in this moment over a marijuana bill. And I know, Mr. Speaker, don't you get mad. You ain't gavel me down in a long time. I'm going to try to make sure it gets to be a little bit longer. But I just wanted to say, I heard someone say that the people of Alabama and all of these issues, and I think Representative Jackson said it best, all of these issues that the gentleman mentioned, two or three speakers before me, I believe that he actually did say what we have been talking about, all the issues that we attempt to debate. But now, because we have Republicans pitted against each other, it's all now what we need to be doing for the people of Alabama. Where every poll that I've seen from the Democratic side, from the Republican side, and every other side that's on the table, there have been poll after poll after poll, and each one of those polls have consistently, with regards to gaming, said that over 80% of the people of the state of Alabama want some lottery or gaming in this state. And I don't care what church you go to, your church is not the only church in the state of Alabama. So it's some folks in some other churches that have an interest in gaming. But I just wanted to rise and say that I've listened to all of these arguments. I've heard some of your members say how tired they were of these long nights. Y'all haven't seen long nights around here. I remember, Mr. Speaker, and you know it better than anybody, we would be here all night and all day. The speaker would gavel us out at 11:59, gavel us back in at 12:01. Somebody would call, would say the pledge and the prayer. And we would be here, Mr. Speaker, about how long? 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, and right back again at 9 o'clock in the morning. So all y'all around here talking about y'all tired, y'all can forget it. Y'all ain't no tighter than we have ever been down here. We've spent some nights in this chamber before. So that's what you were elected to do. So if you have to leave, then leave and go home. But we'll be here doing the work of the people.
All right.
We have 2 pieces. I'm about to finish. You ain't cutting nobody
Well,
else.
your time's run out on you. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
And before you cut me off, and me and you have a bad ending to a good session. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. All right. Now, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Covington.
Mr. Speaker, I have a resolution.
All right, clerk, proceed the resolution.
House Resolution number 265 by the Rules Committee, a special order calendar.
All right, members.
Speaker, I move adoption.
All right, the question before us is adoption of the special order calendar. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Carnes. We're now on the adoption of the special order calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know a lot of work went into the special order calendar, and I appreciate the Rules Committee. They've done a tremendous job this year, and I want to commend the chairman. He is, every time I've gone to the chairman of the Rules Committee, he's given me straight answers and talked to me like a fellow member of the legislature, even though he's in a pretty high-ranking position. I am a committee chair, but being chairman of Rules is a pretty exalted place. And he has done a wonderful job of putting together many, many, many good special order calendars. However, today is one that I think we need to really slow down on, because, you know, the best I understand what happened here is that, you know, our Judiciary Committee, who has a great chairman and a great deal of wonderful members from both sides of the aisle, worked for approximately 3 to 4 hours on a committee afternoon to come up with a lot of common sense answers to what they felt like were problems with a bill on cannabis that could take some extra work. And so they worked and they worked and they worked. And at the end of their work session, to the best of my knowledge, they had 10 amendments. And those 10 amendments were very good. Several of those amendments were by friends of mine who serve on the Rules Committee. And they told me how they had worked extremely hard and had attained a great deal of success toward getting, if you have to have a cannabis bill in the state of Alabama, that they had a product that they felt good about. However, and this is the first time, and I'm glad this happened, but it's the first time that I remember where we had a committee like a powerful Judiciary Committee put out a finished product, and then it went to another extremely powerful committee, which is the Health Committee. And as we all know, the Health Committee has done some unbelievable, heavy lifting through the years. And so they took what was from Judiciary, and the chairman and the members worked exceedingly hard. And they came up with a substitute that was, I think, went from 86 pages to 92 pages. And in the 92 pages were 7 of the 10 amendments that Judiciary did. And I know that this was somewhat of an era with internal work by the committee or someone, and it was an innocent era, and these things do happen, and I understand that. But when this became public, the substitute for Senate Bill 46, it was 3 items short of the 10 items that were put on in Judiciary Committee. So that was a real quandary. I don't think in all of my days here that I've seen us get to that point on a bill of this magnitude that has this much importance and this much projected change of the culture of the state of Alabama. And don't ever doubt it, the state of Alabama gets into the marijuana business, the cannabis business, it will change the very fabric of who we are as a state. It will change it because, in my opinion, when they adopted medical marijuana for a period of time, they had recreational marijuana. And so experienced that, but I have heard extreme horror stories. In fact, one of the members had gone to a meeting in Colorado with educators, and 25 educators in a breakout committee at that meeting in Colorado told our representatives from this House, and he may talk about this if he wants to at a future time today, that the biggest mistake that they, as elected officials in the state of Colorado, was to go into the marijuana business and make it from medical to recreational. And one thing that stands out to me, and that is we have a system right now where you can go to the doctor can prescribe medicine that has been approved by the FDA that sometimes took 6, 8, 9, maybe 10 years to get that approved. And the person that gets that prescription can go to their apothecary and get this filled, and they know exactly what they're getting. They know that it is absolutely safe because of everything that's gone on within the system. We have the best controlled medical system in the world, and we are attempting to set up an alternative universe to what we have now that is working. The alternative universe is a separate system of delivery of a product that a doctor can prescribe. However, from reading indexes and statistics from other states, after a period of time, the product gets polluted. And I know we're talking now about non-inhaling product. One little amendment to this bill will change it to whatever it needs to be to make this new industry that is profit-driven make more money. I don't know the exact number of people who would be prescribed as patients for marijuana by doctors. I would say it's anywhere from 3 to 6% of the population of Alabama, which is now over 5 million people, and this would only apply to people 19 years and older in most cases, not all. And however, once you get that in place, it is a simple amendment at some future year for a legislator to come and say, we're changing from medical to recreational. And that changes the world, because then everybody in Alabama over the age of 19 will be able to go to dispensaries and pick up recreational marijuana. And statistically, it doesn't take much digging. You do not have to live on Google to understand some of the statistics that are out there. You know, I know there are a lot of Exhibit A's, a lot of Exhibit B's, a lot of Exhibit C's, and there will be some good that would come out of medical marijuana. However, the bigger picture is that we need to go slow. We need to set this up. There is a possibility that the feds are going to come in and say this is no longer illegal federally. And once that happens, we can go back and start going to our own pharmacy. It can be controlled, and it can be something that we feel that is safe not only now, but would be safe tomorrow, would be safe 6 months from now, and also would be safe next year. And that would go for our loved ones, our children, our grandchildren, whoever needed this at the appropriate time. And it would be under a totally controlled situation that, like I just mentioned, is probably the best medical distribution system in the world that we have established, and we're going around that to get to an alternative situation.
And the
that
gentleman's time.
Will bring quite a bit of trauma. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Chair thanks the gentleman. And the chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jim will yield.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I've been waging my own campaign this session talking about the type of bills we need on our calendar. And it's so unfortunate that a bill of this magnitude was not treated earlier. But one that we're just not going to deal with is Medicaid expansion. So, you know, we bought so many different bills before this body to pass, and on yesterday, I was listening to the news when it said more than 40% of the people who got sick with COVID in the state of Alabama and had to be hospitalized were not insured. And it's concerning to me that that's one bill we're not dealing with during this session. And I think that now, with the number of families that are still suffering, because it's already been predicted that some of the long haulers are going to continue to have symptoms and ailments from COVID-19 infection, that's going to stay with them a long time. And many of those young people, they're not going to be insured either. But it's most unfortunate that that is something that is very important to all of our constituents, because I've heard people come to the mic today, and I, like my colleague, Representative Gavan, I'm so glad to hear people talk about their constituents. Those are the people that elect us to come to Montgomery and represent them. And I'm just proud of us talking about it, but we ought to have been about our constituents' business. Even with this, but the bill that most people are concerned about today, the cannabis bill, that's something I think we needed a lot more time to have talked about, other than getting to the third day before the end of the session. I just asked the different chairmen whether we go into a special session to deal with various issues or next year in the regular session. I'm just imploring you, let us deal with some of the important things that affect the daily lives of the citizens of Alabama. And let us do it early on in the session. Even if the conversation starts and the bills are there, it'll give all of us the opportunity to have some input. You know, I talked about Medicaid expansion. It's falling on deaf ears. And I think that whoever calls the shots chose not to deal with the health care of the citizens of Alabama, which in my opinion, it takes away when we're talking about recruiting businesses to this state. If you don't have a healthy society of people that could go into the workforce, then that diminishes your attractiveness to businesses that might want to relocate or start up in the state of Alabama. But I'm just to the point. I know like I said, we're the third. This is day 3. We got 2 more days, 1 more this week, then we're out. On that last day, we won't be doing anything but trying to see which bills, if the governor vetoes any, to override. I think we missed a great opportunity to have discussion on Medicaid expansion. I think we missed an opportunity to be able to go in more details about this cannabis bill. We also have a gaming bill coming up, which I think is probably slated for death, because I understand that what the Senate did, when it came to the House, it was basically stripped. So, you know, the senators in the upper chamber, they don't like that. So they're not going to accept something from the lower chamber that diminishes what they've done. But I think things like gaming, Medicaid expansion, this cannabis bill, I think we should have been working on it early on. And I think by this time, we would have come to some solution on both of those issues, because this state cannot survive. It cannot survive, first, with people who are not healthy and people who don't have health insurance to take care of themselves. I don't think this state is going to be, and it's not competitive now, because we've not dealt with the gaming and the benefits it could have brought. In that gaming bill that's coming up, I understand we're not looking at Medicaid expansion there either. Then we got hundreds of millions of dollars coming from the federal government under the CARES Act. We're not talking about what portions of that could be used for Medicaid expansion, which I think, when are we going to talk about it? When those dollars come, who are going to decide how they're used and how they'll be distributed? Because they come down in various categories, and we do have a category that deals with education. We got one that deals with health care. So I just implore us to look closer at the people that vote for us, and they trust us to come here to put bills in place to make them have a better quality and quantity of life. You can live a good life, but you can be so unhealthy that you don't survive. I think those are issues that at some point in time we have just got to bring to the table. And when we bring them to the table, we cannot do it the last 2 or 3 days of the session, because they all deserve a lot more conversation than we're giving them. And I can understand people who have problems with the cannabis bill that's coming up. From a medical perspective, you know, I tell people that cannabis, what it does is it dulls that pain that that patients have. Whereas a lot of medication don't help, cannabis will dull that. But we have to be realistic enough to know that you cannot take all of the cannabinoids out of marijuana, and it affects everybody's body differently, because all of our bodies react to medication differently. But I do implore us, and the people that's in the higher echelon in this body that determine which bills will get in committee, like I think my Medicaid expansion would have gone through general fund. So I just implore upon the general fund chair to just give us a chance, you know, next time, because somebody in this state is going to have to pay for the health care of all of those people that were sick with COVID that didn't have health insurance. Our hospitals are going to suffer when they are not refunded for the resources that was used to care for these patients. If health care can't be at the top of our list, and if the betterment of Alabama at some point in time, we got to stop saying we're number 50. 50 in everything. At some point in time, we got to be about our people's business. And I'll continue this on our second day. We're going to still talk about Medicaid expansion. We're going to still talk about the benefits that gaming could bring to this state. We're going to still talk about what my colleague, Representative Rogers, has been talking about. Minority don't adequately describe black people, because the way it's set up, we get no benefits from it. So at some point in time, as he said, when we come up with bills where we got to have the diversity language, we've got to say blacks and other minorities, because we've been left out of the equation. I got just a few seconds left. I do thank you, Mr. Chair, for always being attentive to when I speak, and I applaud you for that, because so many people, when you're talking, like we have right now, so many people on their phones, they don't even respect each other to listen to what each other have to say. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, ma'am.
And the chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
First, I want to publicly thank you for always taking time for any stupid question I have. You've always been very gracious, and I really appreciate that. I know you have a busy job, and I really, after being here now my third year, I really appreciate the work you guys do. You're here after everybody else is gone, probably here before everybody gets here. I wanted to ask a few questions. I actually attended your committee meeting this afternoon, and I'd never done that before, and I did that to kind of get a feel for how your committee operated.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, it was kind of a quick agenda, but that's okay.
That's actually how we operate.
Pardon?
We don't spend a lot of time in rules. We try our best to do the homework beforehand, and we try to, the rules members that are in this body, we try to get out the pick list, the bills from which they pick and select for their pick on the calendar. We try to get those out as far in advance as we can in maybe a couple hours. And so the goal is when we actually do get to the rules meeting, the work's pretty much been done, and it flows very, very quickly.
So would you say most of the work gets done in subcommittees?
No, sir. We once again, there are subcommittees. We have a resolution subcommittee. We have the special order subcommittee, and we have the consent calendar subcommittee. And I let those chairmen of those subcommittees run their subcommittees, and I don't get in the way of those chairmen. But as far as the work, once we put the pick list together, we give that to all the members of rules. So every member gets that. We try to Tracy walks it out and hand delivers to every member. And we give them as much time as we can to give them plenty of time to not only look over the list, but to talk with members on the floor to decide which bill is their priority bill and secondary bill and so forth. So when we get to the meeting, I mean, what you saw today was actually not that unusual. We probably the longest meeting, and I'm going to look around, probably the longest meeting we've had this year may have taken 10 minutes tops. That's probably about the longest meeting. So we do our homework in advance to make it work a little smoother.
And obviously that works. I'm familiar with city council meeting. They have a work session and all the arguments happen there. And then when it gets to the actual council meeting, it's just kind of routine and knocks it out of the park. I want to take this opportunity to better understand how the pick list works. Does everybody on the committee have an opportunity to pick a bill for that list?
Well, the way that it's worked as long as I've been in this body, which has been about 11 years, and I served on Rules Committee my first year as well, the Speaker and the Rules Chair, they can pick whatever bills they want to pick. Especially during the normal part of the season, usually it's a couple of bills per. And then each member of Rules Committee then is called as per the roll call, and each member is allowed to select one bill. And so typically we end up with a calendar of roughly 18 bills. Sometimes it may be as many as 20, sometimes as few as 16, but usually it's in that 18 range.
Right. So did I understand you to say that the Speaker and the Chairman have two picks?
No, sir, we don't actually have a limit. I guess the benefit of sitting in that chair and sitting in his Rules chair is that you get to do those things. So, and that's how it's always worked since I've been here. I've never known it to be different.
Okay. I just forgot my question. Give me a second here to regain my thoughts. When y'all meet following the current day's business, you normally have a Rules Committee meeting almost immediately following, if I understand
Yes, sir.
correctly.
The normal course of business is immediately upon adjournment that we would then congregate back in room 617 and that we would have our meeting as soon as the members arrive.
Right.
And we try to, out of respect, wait for every member to arrive because their pick is important to them. And so we try to allow them that opportunity to get to the room. But that is the norm. Now, that's not always been the case. In years past, we used to meet 10 or 20 minutes before the session day started. And so sometimes the calendar would be picked for the following session day 10 minutes before we started. And so it's been done different ways. I prefer this way, and I think our rules member prefer this way. Once again, it gives them a lot more time to review their pick list. When I first came in this body, I literally would walk into the room, they would hand out the pick list, and within about 3 minutes, we were picking a bill. So you didn't get a lot of time to study a pick list or know what you're really doing. You went in there with a card full of bills and just hoped that one of your bills was on that list. So we moved to this way to try to give, frankly, to give the rules members as much time as we can to get so they can make good picks.
Well, and I also appreciate the fact that you get that special order calendar most of the times a day or two in advance, and it gives members like myself an opportunity to see and study the bills that are going to be on the calendar for the next day, and that's very helpful for me.
It is become the norm, but also here's where I'm going to give credit to the person I need to give credit the most, and that's our clerk, Tracy. She stays here. We're here well after everybody else, and she stays here and works on that. And that is the standard operating procedure, and that she does try to get that out that night, if at all possible. This past time was a little bit different. There was what I'm going to refer to as a clerical error that was discovered almost as soon as we finished the meeting last Thursday. And once we saw what it was, we went ahead and I think the following day, Tracy noticed the rules members that we had seen that clerical error and that we would need to meet a few minutes before we started today to correct that error. So that happens. I mean, anytime we have something like that happen, some people may say, well, you could have just changed it. It was a single number. Well, if you follow the rules, we adopted that calendar with that mistake. And so to honor the rules, we needed to come back together as a rules committee to re-adopt the calendar to clean up the mistake. And so that's what we did. We noticed our members and let them know that as far as in advance as we could, and we actually got that notice out on Friday.
Well, and I applaud you. You are a stickler for rules, and I appreciate that. I'm kind of the same way. I don't know them as well as you do, but I do appreciate that. If you would explain just a minute, you have Ms. Rowe, I think, is your vice chair.
That's correct.
Ms. Boyd, Dr. Boyd is your ranking minority member.
That's correct.
And how many other members on your committee, and how many are Republican versus Democrat?
Right. There's 15 total members on the committee. And honestly, I have to think about that. And I will say this: when I work with rules members on rules committee, honestly, I look beyond R's and D's, because these are all members that have worked hard to get in that position, and they work hard as rules members. We've actually modified our rules committee rules and procedures so that every member has a chance to be at the top of the list on a particular calendar, depending where we end the previous session day. And so it doesn't matter if you're an R or D, you could be at the top. And out of respect for all the members on rules, that's what we tried to work by. So I really couldn't tell you. I've never kept up with it as an R&D division.
So let me make sure I understood that last statement. You go through a pick list, and
right.
You get somewhere between 16 and 20 bills. But
so if we finish early, let's say we finish on the 8th bill on this session day.
Okay.
Well, when we go to pick bills, whoever was the next bill up that didn't get reached, the member that picked that bill after the speaker and after rules chairman would be the next pick.
Okay.
And so they could be at the bottom of the list or middle way in the list as far as the committee. But it allows every member the opportunity to be at the top of the list, depending on where that falls.
So it's a matter of how far you get in the previous day's calendar.
That's correct.
And then the last person is the first person the next day? Is that the way?
Well, once again, when we pick, upon adjournment, and we're picking for the next session day,
right.
Then after the speaker picks, after I pick, whoever that person would have been next, their bill would have been next up on that previous calendar day, they would be the third pick. They'd be raised to the top of the list. If you didn't do it, if you did it the other way, where basically the top 6 members in the committee were the only ones ever picking, and that wouldn't be fair.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Chair thanks the gentleman. All right. And the chair recognizes the gentleman from Tuscaloosa, Representative Wingo.
Mr. Speaker, Chairman Jones.
Yes, sir.
I echo what the representative said. I think you do a wonderful job at what you do. So just to follow up just one question as far as where he was going. So I see where this marijuana bill, cannabis bill, is number one on the calendar. So who has the number one pick?
There's only one person who ever has the number one pick, and that's the Speaker of the House.
So the Speaker picked the marijuana bill.
That's correct.
So I just flew in this morning from Tampa, and I was with my dearest friend that I went to school with, who just lost his 35-year-old son to an overdose. He was a wonderful young man, and he had struggled with addiction his whole life. He was a double master's, a magna cum laude from Florida State. He was a brilliant young man. And the gateway drug was marijuana. And the experts tell us, and I have read over and over, I don't think I've read more preparing for this bill than in any time in the legislature. I think that to truly try to understand what people deal with and what people struggle with and what's right and what's wrong here. What's the right vote? And Chairman, every time I get into a study like Harvard Institute, a secular study, about as secular and as scientific as you can get, they come back with the same information over and over again, non-conclusive. There's no real evidence that shows. This is Harvard saying this, not Rich. This is Harvard stating that there is simply no evidence either way that it does what people say it does or it doesn't do. We're about to change the face of this state. I mean, this body is a supermajority of Republicans, and here we are. We're trying to defend gambling, gaming, and marijuana. In Florida, where medical marijuana is somewhat legal, billboards say, they don't say don't drive drunk anymore, they say don't drive high. This is a real problem that they did not expect when it went through their legislative body. I'm like Representative Wheeler. Chairman, I need time to read this bill. I understand, if you'll tell me, how many page substitute is coming today?
The floor sub is 94 pages. There's an amendment to the floor sub that's 10 pages. The floor sub is the engrossed House Judy bill. In other words, as it left Judy, there were 10 amendments that Judy put on, and so the floor sub will be the engrossed 10 amendments into the original bill. And then the amendment to the floor sub that would be coming at some point is a consolidation of the 7 amendments that Health put on into one amendment. So that's why it's 10 pages long. It's a consolidation of 7 amendments.
94 pages, did you say?
94 is the floor sub, and then 10 pages is the amendment to the floor sub.
And how long has that sub been out?
I don't know what time it went out. I believe yesterday, but I don't know what time it went out.
So, Mr. Chair, not you, but they are expecting us to understand a 94-page sub in less than 24 hours?
Well, it is a lengthy bill, and I've been, diving into it as well. I do think there's some, what I'm going to refer to as good faith amendments that are probably coming after these two things, assuming they're adopted. And I hope, and I do expect there's going to be a really sincere debate as far as some of those issues. I would expect there would be. This is not a simple issue for the state. If it were, I think it would discredit us. I think it's a very important issue to debate for the state. There's clearly very passionate positions on both sides. I mean, I've had as many phone calls as probably everybody else. Actually, probably the Speaker's office in my office probably get more phone calls than most. But I do think in good faith, this is one of those issues that if there was ever an issue that's a heavy debate issue, this is legitimately a heavy debate issue.
So there's a 94 sub, at 94-page sub, and then
Right.
there's an 11,
10 page.
10 pages
Right.
with 7 amendments, did you say?
It's a consolidation of the 7 Health Committee amendments into one committee amendment, and that's why that's why it is 10 pages long.
Have you had a chance to dissect them? And
I've reviewed the committee amendment, the floor amendment that is a consolidation of the health amendments. I reviewed those, and I was reviewing them some more this morning. And some of those actually do strike off portions of some of the House Judy amendment. And I expect some members will probably come to this floor today trying to put some of that back into place. I don't know, but I would expect. So both committees touched it in different ways, and you would expect that. There's, Judy committees looking at it through legalized, health committees looking at it through obviously health and more of a medical view of it. And that's the reason why it went to 2 committees, is that this bill kind of rides along 2 different clear paths that are different. It does have some substantial impacts on some legal issues, both civil and criminal, but it also has clearly a substantial different path for how we handle some medical issues. And so I think in good faith, I think it's good for a bill like this that it get touched by 2 strong committees. And based on the number of amendments, I would say that those committees, obviously reviewed the bill and obviously took it very serious.
I hope they did. This is because it will change the face of the state of Alabama forever. Having read documentation and literature on someone mentioned the state of Colorado, who is well down the road with marijuana, started with the medical marijuana, then it went to recreational marijuana. They're a great case study, and if people would take the time to study the state of Colorado, they would I think would be amazed and possibly would be very fearful of this bill.
I think if anybody started doing any kind of due diligence in researching this issue, there's really an endless amount of data. And unfortunately, that's part of the problem. When I look at issues, and I routinely delve into issues and research things behind the scenes, normally you see a mainstream data line that you can kind of have some degree of trust. This is one of those issues that clearly there's 2 very, very strong extreme positions left and right. And, my experience is that data usually on both sides is not usually something that I can trust. So I try to look for something that's more dependable, more trustworthy down the center. Normally that's better to go on. And so, for example, on this one, I look at National Highway Safety and Traffic Studies. I look at CDC because those are things that we all routinely look to for studies. And you look for organizations who traditionally do deep dives into issues that we all look to. Council of State Governments, a number of those type of traditional groups. And I try to stay away from some of those extreme factions.
I understand. Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, sir.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Elmore County, Representative Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Jones, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I want to add my compliments to you, too, and I've watched you for about 7 years now, gotten to know you real well as a good friend, and I really admire the way you keep the details of our schedule through the Rules Committee and the way it operates. It's like a well-oiled machine. You do a great job. I am, like the others that have been to the mic here in the last few minutes, really confused about what happened here in the last 18 or so hours. When we left here last Thursday night, we felt like we had a pretty good picture of what we're dealing with, and we had our homework all laid out for us, what we needed to be studying, what we need to be aware of. And I'm wondering if you can you walk me through kind of the events that brought us to where we are today with a medical marijuana bill first on a single issue special order calendar.
Well, and once again, the placement of the bill is really, I think, self-explanatory. This is the way the bills typically line up, or the speaker makes picks, I make picks.
I'm having a hard time hearing you up here. There's a lot of background noise. Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Yes, sir, I'll try. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. And the way the process typically works is the speaker would make picks, I would make picks, and then we would then call on each member of rules to make a pick. And each member would then make a single pick. And so that is normal. That's been a normal part of the process as long as I've been here. And so that's what we proceeded. As far as today, once again, the first picks are typically the speaker's picks. So obviously this is a speaker's pick bill. And that's one of the prerogatives, that's one of the benefits of being speakers, you're allowed that. But once again, that is not something new. That's something that has been consistent for many years since I've been in this body. The other thing, as far as Rules Committee goes, a special order calendar can be adopted by Rules Committee at any time, and can then so it can be changed at any time. That is actually within our rules, within our House local rules. And so as far as the rules go, everything that has been done as far as this calendar is procedurally correct. There's not a violation of any rule whatsoever. As far as the change, that happens. I mean, frankly, even especially at the end of session, there are members who've been here a lot longer than I have that are sitting in front of me that can tell you that's not unusual. It does happen from time to time at the end of session, and we just simply have to kind of roll with it. So we're at that point to where this is the first bill up, and it is what it is.
It's troubling to me, and I'm not surprised that a lot of people are concerned and upset about it when we had such a short period of time. Any reason why this is all delayed to be announced till yesterday? I finally got an email with this in it about 5:30 yesterday, and there's only enough hours. I'm still not through reading it all the way through. Haven't gotten to the amendments at all, so I'm really curious to know how leadership thinks we're going to cast an intelligent vote without any more preparation than this.
Well, the one thing that was done, and it was done as fast as it could be done, is that the moment the decision was made, I had already asked LSA, and they were working on both the floor sub and on the floor amendment to the sub, and so that was already being prepared, and it was actually ready, I believe, at the time this decision was made, and so it was sent out to members, I believe, within minutes of that decision being made. And my understanding is, and I'm going to have to look to the members in front of me for guidance, but my understanding is a member of the Speaker's staff personally contacted each member to try to make sure they looked into their emails and to make sure they were aware that this floor sub and
about what time was that yesterday? Do you know?
I honestly don't know. One of the jobs I have at home is that I'm a judge, and so I was actually judging at the time while all this was played out, and I stepped out to make a phone call to learn about this in between a case, and so I had to go back and continue judging. So I don't personally know the exact time all this processed out. I just couldn't tell you truthfully the answer to that. I don't know.
Well, whatever the time was, obviously it didn't leave us enough time to actually get the bill read, unless you didn't get any sleep and you just worked straight through the night. Was the only way I would see to do it, because this is intricate language. This is not easy reading. This is your style of reading as an attorney that you're used to reading, and I'm sure with your education background and experience, you read it a lot more carefully than I do. You know the pitfalls, you know the words to look for, and the triggers that would trigger your curiosity or your suspicion, one or the other. So I think that's a huge issue.
Yeah, it is.
The issue to me is we've got on this calendar that we had originally 20 bills on here that a lot of members of this body here put a lot of work into, and if we don't get to that, this one's going to have a problem seeing the light of the day. Just going over them here, the first one obviously is the one where everybody's talking about now, even though it hadn't been officially introduced, but everybody's talking about it. SB46, SB388, Livingston Senator and Representative Horton. This is a favorite one. He and I debate this one every year, is daylight savings time and repealing daylight savings time. It seems trivial, but there's a lot of interest in it. I receive calls from constituents every year, but that one's important to those guys. Next one, SB 384, Community Development Districts. SB 61, Education Retirees Trust Fund Funding Act. Education Retirees Trust Fund created State Treasury as permanent trust to fund periodic bonus checks for education retirees. Duty of the board, of the TRS Board of Control specified. I suspect this one's really important to a lot of retired teachers right now, that they would like to see this one talked about. SB 238, Senator McClendon, Representative Hurst. Elections, qualified visually impaired voters may vote absentee ballots under certain conditions. SB 143, lead reduction, revised authority of Department of Public Health. Senator Singleton and Representative Ingram. SB 113, artificial intelligence, limits the use of facial recognition to ensure artificial intelligence to not only, as it not the only basis for arrest. SB 210, Senator Orr, Representative Sorrell. Criminal procedure, asset forfeiture for drug offenses. SB 151, Senator Singleton, Representative McCampbell. Taxation, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, free and accepted, Mason of Alabama, and the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge to waive exempt from sales, county, and municipal fees and taxes. SB 374, Revenue and Taxation. SB 298, Senator Orr and Representative Garrett, Economic and Community Affairs Department, Alabama Innovation Act. Representative 315, SB 315, Senator Jones, Representative Shaver, collecting items, sports memorabilia, art, represented as authentic recovery of purchase price of not authentic civil actions, damages. SB 260, Senator Singleton, Representative Warren, public contracts, competitive bids further provided. Senator Singleton and Representative England, SB 345, pilot program establishes small business development program for prisoners. SB 221, Corrections Department to create Deputy Commissioner of Prison Rehabilitation within Department of Corrections to create Deputy Director for Parolees Rehabilitation within Board of Pardons and Paroles. SB 205, Senator Allen, Representative Garrett, Home Inspectors, limitations period of liability provided. Number SB 88, Senator Smitherman, Representative Faulkner, Class 1 municipalities, entertainment districts authorized to have 15 under certain conditions. SB 70, School of Cyber Technology and Engineering, granted some same sovereign immunity and participation in Educators Liability Trust Fund is provided for other public K through 12. Senator Elliott, SB 8, and Representative Smith, property homeowners associations and condominiums associations prohibited from restricting display of state flag. SB 204.
And the
Senator
chair
Williams,
thanks the gentleman.
Representative Stringer, bail bond regulation.
Chair
Act.
thanks the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next individual. Chair thanks the gentleman, and the chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to just rise. Mr. Chairman, I've never again thought I would see this day that the members of the other caucus would stand and even have the audacity to question the authority of the Speaker of the House to pull a bill What authority does the Speaker of the House, he is the Speaker, whether I agree with Mac McCutcheon or not, whether I like him today or not, whether I disagree or agree at any time. He is the Speaker of the House, and he has the right and authority to decide what bill will be on this calendar first. If you don't like it, you know what to do. But the only thing I disagree with is that this bill should have come up like back in the day. These types of bills would have been on the calendar at the beginning of the session to give us an opportunity to really fully debate it. But because I've been on the end, Mr. Chairman, we have received an 8-page bill that left this House 8 pages. You didn't know what was in it when it left here, after it left, or what was going to be in it. And it came back to us, a 29-page bill, and every Republican in this House of Representatives, without even reading the bill, voted yes on that Accountability Act. But we are sitting in this House today questioning the Speaker's authority or your process, or at least getting to an avenue to question the Speaker's authority through your process. But I have been stopped by several Republicans that said to me, and I'm just repeating what they said, that I need to get up here and teach. I ain't gonna say what they called y'all. You all how to debate, to filibuster a bill. Because y'all doing a terrible job at filibustering today. But I give you credit for at least trying it. But we have to fight so hard down here, Mr. Chairman, when we're discussing what's on the rules calendar and, on the calendar and what's not. We have gotten accustomed to good filibustering, although it does us no good. But I'm glad to see this medical marijuana bill, because let me just tell you, and I was just sharing with the pro tem, a few years ago when we debated the CBD oil, I was not for that bill. I was vehemently opposed, and that was while I was still on the Judiciary Committee. But I was vehemently opposed to that bill. I had real issues dealing with anything that even might remotely at that time move us toward cannabis. But it wasn't until I saw those women, those men, those husbands, those partners who had kids who suffered from all manner of disease. I saw the pain, I saw the struggle, but I also saw the need for some hope in each one of those parents whose children, day in and day out, every minute on the hour, suffered from epileptic seizures, uncontrollable seizures, to the point that they could die if someone did not put something in their mouth to hold their tongue, and that they would not. You remember that, Mr. And I think you helped to craft or help critique that bill to get it to a passable state. So I'm not here. I'm gonna let y'all debate this marijuana thing, because I remember a few years ago when we stood here. I stood here for 3 or 4 hours on what was dubbed as the mimosa bill, and I remember using the word Sadducee. And I remember using the word hypocrite. And several members got mad, and they told the Speaker how mad they were, and that I just disrespected them from saying that. Well, I stand by what I said then, and I stand by it now. When we start wanting to invoke the Lord and our own religion in something, so you ain't got to go and tell the Speaker what I said. I'm going to let the Speaker know what I said right here. He done stripped me from everything, so I understand it. I'm good with it. My people have never come to the poll. 70-something percent, 77, 78% of the people have come to the poll for the last 2 or 3 years to re-elect me. And not one time have they come to the poll to ask me about a committee. Not one single time. So I just want to simply say, I believe that the author of this bill has used his due diligence. I believe the learned professional that you are, you're going to vote your beliefs and what your constituency want. I've seen you do it time and time again, whether I've agreed with it or not. And you do so in a way that however it turns out, it turns out. And I don't have a problem with that. That's what we're tasked with doing. But to run away from a bill, I've never stood here to ask a bill except for that John Patterson resolution. In 12 years, have you ever heard me come to this microphone and ask to have a bill removed off the calendar? I might come here to say I don't like a bill and I want to vote against it and urge people to vote against it. But I've never come here to question the authority of the rules chair or the speaker with regards. We are here to vote it up, vote it down, or to abstain. Now, I don't buy into this thing I'm hearing everybody talk about. When you say your district, define your district. I've asked time and time again because I hear people say, I'm voting my district. 100 people is not your district. You just have 100 people who've come to you with an opinion, but did you poll the other 44,000 people in your district? Your Sunday school is not the only Sunday school in the state of Alabama. That's just your Sunday school. But I don't knock how a person votes. When these votes are over, I don't think about one of these votes. But I do believe in a process, and I do believe in a democratic process, and that democracy says in this house that we have a choice as leaders to represent the people who duly elected us. Now, are my people in my district going to always agree with me? No. They don't always agree with the calendar that you select. But at the end of the day, they give me the responsibility of bringing back the information to them. And I've come to them, gone to them sometimes, and I've said, I support this for this reason, or I didn't care for that calendar. I had a problem with the calendar 2 weeks ago. I'm not on rules. And I think being the rules chair is a difficult job. It's a lot of work being the rules chair. It's a lot of responsibility. So I just wanted to just take this opportunity to say that I'm hoping we will have a chance to vote this marijuana bill up. Like I said, I was vehemently opposed to anything initially that dealt with any type of cannabis, but I do believe that there are people who are sick in this state. There are people that regular medicine cannot help in this state. We talked about California. We ought to want to be somewhat like California. We ought to want to stop living in the backwoods of Alabama, being so holy. Everybody in here is so holy. Well, I've seen what holiness has gotten us in this chamber. Every time I see somebody get indicted, that said right here that was holy. So I just simply say, I hope I have an opportunity to vote this up one way or the other. Now, on the gaming side, that's a different story. Because I don't believe that the governor of the state of Alabama should be crafting a sub for us as members of the House of Representatives. To me, it was a slap in the face of black people. They didn't want to include anything in there, and y'all can sit here and say that Representative McCampbell was sitting at the table. Bull crap. He might have been sitting there, but you know that language could have been stronger for anybody who is listening in that office. So I just feel like that was a slap in the face of black folks, of African American people, to make sure I'm clear as to what I'm saying and who I'm speaking about, that you want to take a bill, craft a bill, send it back to us in 2 or 3 days and stick it in our faces. Thank you, Mr.
Time is up. We're ready.
All right, I'm coming back. Oh, not on this, but
all right. The hour has passed, and now we're ready for the vote
Move
on
adoption.
the move for adoption. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, and the motion is carried, and we're on the special order calendar now. All right, and Mr. Clerk, let's call the first bill on the special order.
On page 68 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 46 with substitute by Senator Melson relating to medical cannabis.
And the chair recognizes Representative Ball.
Well, I've been waiting for this for a long time. And it's a very unlikely set of circumstances that has got us here. And as I was reflecting, I do think that a lot of this debate, in order to get it in context, we need to go back and recap the sequence of events that got the state of Alabama to where we are on the verge of adopting an extensive medical cannabis bill. As I was preparing for this moment, you know, y'all know I love to play music, and I got all these song lyrics in my head, and so I kept getting this earworm on the way up here, and the song goes, people ask me if I know this Jesus. Is there proof that he's living today? How can I believe in what I can't see? Is there someone who hears when I pray? I've seen his glory all around me. I felt the peace from calling his name. And I've touched the hem of his garment, and my life never will be the same. I want to tell you that the origins of this bill came from a desperate cry of a grandmother who had these deep concerns about her granddaughter. And in October of 2013, I was probably just as opposed to the concept of medical cannabis or medical marijuana in any form as anybody up here. In 2013, during the regular session, a medical cannabis bill was given the Shroud Award for being the deadest bill in the entire session of the legislature. And we were getting ready to go into the 2014 election cycle, and at that time I was a political animal fighting hard on the side of the Republican caucus. But in October of 2013, I got this email that changed my life forever. The lady says, I am asking for your support for medical marijuana. First, let me state that I do not smoke pot, nor does anyone in my family. We are Christians and we don't even drink. My concern is for my 14-month-old granddaughter who is an epileptic. There have been many studies to show that medical marijuana helps seizures tremendously. The type of marijuana we need has little to no THC, so there is not much to get high properties to it at all. We need the other part of the plant called CBD. Right now, our baby is just getting by, but there's been a lot of research where the CBD oil is legal and has helped so many patients. 20 states now have medical legal marijuana, but after having my family live here for generations, we just hate to move and try to start over in another state. There are many people in Alabama with epileptic children, and most like me would go to the ends of the earth to stop the seizures so their lives can be normal. In our case, our granddaughter was born with a gene deletion that has never been recorded in history, so that does not give our doctor much to go on in respect to what we can expect in the future. We give her the best of care and opted for a neurologist in Memphis since he has such a great reputation in neurology and epilepsy. She has no other health problems, as smart as a whip, but some days she may have up to 100 seizures. Please consider what I am asking and just imagine if this was your child or grandchild. Low to no THC marijuana has got to be so much better than the Valium she has to take now to stop her convulsions. Please help us if you can. And there was a picture of the little girl. Well, quite frankly, when I read the line that said, I'm asking for your support for Alabama medical marijuana, I almost deleted it right then without reading the rest of this, because my heart had turned against it. I spent a career in law enforcement. I have seen what marijuana abuse has done and how people have abused this plant for many years. I was totally, utterly, completely unaware of the benefit, which I believe is the purpose in which the plant was created. There are some things in there about which so many people don't know, but it is being unlocked daily. What I did when I got this email, the first thing I did was I called my assistant and clerk, Cliff Richard. You know, he did the devotion here the other day, and Mr. Speaker, I wish he did it more sometimes. But at any rate, I called Cliff and I said, I've got this email. Would you help me give this lady a response as to why we can't do this and look into this CBD? And I was surprised when a few days later, Cliff said, you know, there might be something to this oil. I don't know. And he gave me a couple of leads. Well, understand at that time, my heart and mind was set against it. I knew it was impossible, that we could not pass this bill in this body. I recognized what it was. And I agonized over this thing for months before I ever got to the point where I realized that I would be unable to live with my conscience if I didn't do everything in my power to come up with something to help these people. And what I did, and the bill that I came up with, first of all, I'm a career law enforcement guy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. There's so much stuff that I don't know anything about. As a matter of fact, the more I learn, the main thing I learn is how little I know. But when you do discover something that you know, as an investigator, that you can count on, that's proven, then you can follow it. And the one thing that I knew was that these people who possess this substance for this reason should never be under fear of being prosecuted and put in jail for it. And so I crafted a bill that was very, very narrow in its scope, and I introduced it. And you would have thought that I was opening the gates to Sodom and Gomorrah. And quite frankly, I was maybe I'm naive. I was surprised at how the opposition was. And I knew that it didn't have much choice, but I also knew that I had to do everything in my power to move this. Well, it was an election year, and some people that had told me one thing changed their mind and told another. And, you know, in this place, people will not always be honest with you. They'll hide their cards and they'll manipulate. But that's the process. It's the political process. But as this bill got closer and closer in the process, it came to my understanding that it was destined to die. And I will tell you, it just broke my heart. Fortunately, I don't know who all it came from, but some people decided, hey, we can't do this decriminalization for these people, but why don't we put $1 million a year in the Education Trust Fund budget so we can study whether there's anything to this or not. And I was glad of that and 100% supportive of it, and I knew I wasn't going to get nothing with this other, and I said, yeah, that's great. But in my mind, I was hoping. I had already gotten acquainted with so many people who were suffering, who could be helped. So I decided, I was hoping and praying that this study would be a way to get the oil to some of these people to relieve these seizures. Well, it took about a year. Once the bill passed, you know, we was high-fiving and celebrating, but it took a year for UAB to get this study stood up. Dr. Jerzy Szlawarski was assigned to be the head of this process, and he was very skeptical about cannabis. I think in his mind he thought it might be snake oil. He had really not researched it much at all. But he was over the research, and the DEA and the FDA, and they were doing all these things to get it restricted and down. And I will tell you, some of the measures that they had to put in by regulation to study cannabis was like you were guarding the gold in Fort Knox. But at any rate, it went through the process, and when the study opened up, I found out that Lenny Young was another one of those families that did not qualify for the study. And it broke my heart. Lenny Young, for those of you that know it, if you've seen the picture of me and Lenny worshiping right after the Carly's Law passed the Senate, she's the little girl in the picture. And I found out that Lenny didn't qualify, so her family was going to have to move to Oregon. We call those, they were refugees from Alabama. And it really did grieve my heart. But they moved to Florida, to Oregon, and shortly after they moved to Oregon, just a few weeks, I woke up in the middle of the night, one of those sleepless nights, and I opened my Facebook page, and Lenny's mom had posted a video of Lenny watching Frozen. And I saw joy on that baby's face. I saw her giggle, and I saw her enjoy that. And it was just a few weeks after she had gotten started getting on the oil, the cannabis. And while I was watching her do the video, then I realized that we had to go back and we had to pass a law that was our original Carly's Law. I'd call it Lenny's Law. And what that bill was supposed to do was, yes, we've got the study, but this would make the CBD oil with low THC available to a lot more people who needed it. Surprisingly, that met with just as much opposition, and it's like roadblocks just thrown up at every turn in this body and in even the Senate. But we managed, I would say my Senate sponsor was Senator Sanford. Some people ask me, why'd you get Senator Sanford to do it? And I reckon he was the only one crazy enough to do it. But I was so proud of him, and he did a great job of carrying the bill in the Senate. But one of the things that happened during the process is there were some ambiguities that needed to be cleared up. And so I knew that we would have to come back in 2019 after the election. I'm almost through here. What I'm trying to do is give you folks a sense of chronology of how we got here and how this bill in particular got here and how we got from oil to this bill. So what happened is, as we start the 2019 session, it was my intention to just clear up some ambiguities in Lenny's Law and extend our study and continue that. And so it needed some legal authorization. So I got my families together, no paid lobbyists, no special interest. Now, there was one other person in our little group that I met for the first time. I met Dr. Jerzy Szlawarski for the first time at that meeting in January of 2019. And I want to tell you my impression of him. He knows about medical cannabis. I have heard a lot of people saying you don't know who to trust, and you don't. This is a hot button political issue. You got folks on one side saying turn it loose and everybody needs to have it, and then you got folks on the other side saying no, it's just evil and it's just going to destroy our land. Well, the truth is something else. The truth is another thing at all completely. So I met Dr. Szlawarski, and he reminds me a lot of these scientists and engineers and folks that I have in my district. He was so focused on the data and his research, and he just flooded me with information about what this does and what this doesn't do, and the research shows it can help with this, and this. And when I started talking about what I wanted to do, which was a very limited baby step, because I know how stubborn this place is. He said, no, no, no. He said, you don't understand. Just people getting it wherever they want it, that's not going to help these people because you have to have controls in place. You have to explain. They have to have a place where where the plant they're getting, they have to know the percentage of THC, CDBs, and even all the other endocannabinoids. There's an entourage effect in this plant where these things work together, and men try to synthesize it, but they can't. There's marinol and there's things that will extract certain parts, but the way this is in the plant needs to be used in the practice of medicine. And anyway, Dr. Shavarsky explained to me a lot. I just learned more right then than I knew about this. And so I told our little group, I said, I tell you what, this is all I want. You're talking about something that's way out of my realm of expertise as far as seed to sale and farming and growing and regulate. I don't know. We need a bill that does this. So I charged them with going out and finding the best possible bill we could to start with, and we only had a few weeks before the session started. And I told them, I said, I tell you, find the best possible bill that you can that will do what we want to do, that is really medical and that doesn't open a door for recreational, because I don't want that. And none of them did either. So we discovered this bill that Senator Janice Bowling out of Tullahoma, Tennessee, had introduced in the Tennessee House. And all of our people saw it, and it's the structure of this bill. We saw it and we said, well, that gets where we need to go. We still had to work on it. I need to tell y'all something about Senator Janice Bowling. For the people in the Eagle Forum and some of these conservative folks that are opposing this, Senator Janice Bowling, she's an evangelical Christian, but she is a lockdown, die-hard, dyed-in-the-wool conservative that many of you would really love, other than this one issue. And I will tell you, she had been working on this bill for years, and she had worked with a lot of different people, and this was the bill that she came up with. So I immediately went to Nashville, and I met Senator Janice Bowling, and we talked about this, and I found out that we had a lot in common, and so this is the bill we introduced, and Senator Melson had told me, Senator Sanford didn't run, so Senator Melson had told me earlier, when you get your cannabis bill, or he didn't say cannabis, your oil bill, let me know, and I'll carry it in the Senate. And I was just tickled to have an MD, a doctor, who was interested in doing this, because that was where I was severely lacking. And after I worked on this for a while, I got it about as good as I was capable of getting it. Senator Sanford said, "Have you got your oil bill?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Put it in a blue jacket and get it to me." So I put it in a blue jacket. I got this bill to him. And when I handed it to him, he said, "Now this is just the oil, right?" I said, "No, this is something else. This is complete medical cannabis, stem to sale." I don't mean to kill it, but it's important you have this story, because I'm through just about. Okay. At any rate, I didn't mean to filibuster my own bill. I got a lot to talk about. But when I handed that to Senator Melson, this hadn't been my bill. This is his bill. He's done a great job of it. And I'll be glad to ask any further questions. Answer. A call for the BIR if no further questions.
All right, I believe that's the question before us now. We're on the adoption of the BIR, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Shelby, Representative Mooney, will be the first person speaking on the BIR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the years that we worked on the bill for Carley's Law, many of us were very supportive of that process because it went through channels that we believed in medical science and medical research, and it did wonderful things to help people along the way. I rise today just simply to provide information from a number of groups in the state of Alabama that have tried to weigh in on this process, and I would hope that the people of our state who are listening would hear the messages that are given. The American Academy of Pediatrics Position Statement, Legalization of Marijuana, April 14th, 2021. The Alabama chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics opposes the legalization of medical marijuana outside of the Food and Drug Administration approved process. Marijuana is not regulated by the FDA, therefore its purity, potency, and consistency cannot be reliably verified, and efficacy as well as risk-benefit analysis are not determined through anecdotal accounts. Though anecdotal accounts have shown that certain cannabinoids, I apologize for butchering that, could benefit children with specific chronic debilitating diseases, there have been few published studies to date about the effects of cannabinoids in the pediatric population. For this reason, our organization strongly advocates for research and development of pharmaceuticals and supports a review of policies promoting research on the medical use of such compounds. Non-FDA approved medical marijuana remains listed as a Schedule I controlled substance. There is no official guidance for pediatricians to follow when recommending marijuana, and they would be in violation of federal law doing so. Currently, however, there are 4 pharmaceutical-grade medications, THC and CBD based, that have been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and are available for physicians to use as clinically indicated. For this reason alone, a law to legalize medical marijuana is unnecessary. Our position is informed by the lack of available research and supported by evidence-based policy and the position of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Another organization, the National Families in Action, National Families in Action. National Families in Action's position is that no local, state, or federal legislative body should legalize marijuana for medical use before it has been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. We doubt any state legislature would legalize a COVID-19 vaccine that had not been approved by FDA in emergency as safe and effective to vaccinate people. But that is exactly what states are doing when they legalize marijuana for medical use. And they continue on stating some of the same things that have been stated by the American Academy of Pediatrics. They close by saying legalizing marijuana for medical use offers none of these protections. I would read to you a lady who is a pediatrician from Bruton, Alabama, who wanted to testify in the House committee but was unable to because of a time constraint. Her name is Marcia Rawlerson. She is an MD who practices there in the Bruton area, a pediatrician. Marijuana is not a medicine. It is, it is not paid for by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. I cannot write a prescription for it. A pharmacy cannot fill it. I fully support clinical trials, rigorous scientific research to determine the safety and efficacy of any potential medication derived from the marijuana plant. I have 2 patients now who take I believe it's called Epidiolex for seizures. I've practiced pediatrics in the same rural community in Bruton for over 40 years. I can tell many stories about youth who have had adverse effects after starting marijuana. My husband, also a physician, has been the medical examiner for Escambia County since 1998. Most of the deaths by accidental overdose, suicide, or gun violence have toxicology screen results that include marijuana. What do you think will be the message if this bill passes? Headlines will read in the news, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, medical marijuana passed by Alabama legislature. This bill will give silent permission to children, adolescents, and pregnant women to use marijuana for whatever. After all, it's a medicine. It's a question. but share with you from the Alabama State Lodge of the Fraternal Order of Police, written to the Alabama House of Representatives. The members of Alabama's largest law enforcement organization, the Alabama State Fraternal Order of Police, write to beseech you to vote no on SB 46 when it is presented to the House floor. As law enforcement professionals, we are far too familiar with the public safety dangers associated with impairing driving, and based on the language of the bill as well as the effects of the identical bill passage through other states and the negative impact it has had on public roadways and traffic fatalities, this bill will only add to those tragic numbers. We passionately feel as though the lawful use of marijuana in any form for any purpose will have fatal consequences on the safety of our communities in the form of impaired driving, impaired job performance, industrial work at industrial work sites, as well as implicit messaging sent to our students and young adults that would dismiss the dangers of the THC intoxication. We have spoken with countless healthcare professionals who affirm this bill is not concerned with patient care. Rather, this bill is focused on the introduction of a new industry in Alabama that has left a wake of destruction in its path among other states. As a representative body of law enforcement across the state of Alabama, we implore you to vote no on the passage of SB 46, the medical marijuana bill. Respectfully, the President of the Alabama Fraternal Order of Police. I'd read for you one other letter that was sent to the House Health Committee from a physician, Grant Allen, from Florence, Alabama. Why would we approve a product as a medicine that has not been tested and shown effective better than other available medicines? New medicines to the market have to be shown to have some improvement over existing medicines to get approval. For nausea, there is a medicine. It is by far the most effective anti-nausea agent available, including marijuana, and has far fewer side effects than phenergan and marijuana. Mental health. Marijuana actually is far more likely to increase anxiety, psychosis, depression, hallucinations than the standard of care SSRIs that have decades of research behind them. Interactable seizures. The legislature funded studies into the very topic with no significant improvement in intractable seizures. Improvements shown by proponents of marijuana and CBD for the purpose are anecdotal reports not born out of controlled blind studies. We already see approximately 60% of birthing moms at our local hospital test positive at least once during pregnancy without a legal marijuana option in Alabama. The effects of the neurons and developing brains are known. Marijuana is neurotoxic to the fetus, child, and adolescent brain. Medical marijuana is a cover for recreational legalization. If the legislature wants to decriminalize marijuana, this gentleman is all for it. He says, but don't propose a medical fiction of marijuana being good for people medically, because that just isn't true. Grant Allen, MD, Florence, Alabama. I wanted to share these simply because we have received tons of letters and contacts, and quite frankly, I am extremely concerned about every citizen in my district and every citizen in our state who has problems with a variety of things that could very well be helped by medical research into marijuana. I prayerfully believe that this process that we're being presented with is not that process that will long-term benefit our state in the best way. I don't rise to share these remarks in the form of any filibuster. I rise to share these remarks because these are learned professionals, medical, and also those who represent our state. We've also received a letter, and I don't have time to read it, from our district attorneys in our state. And I would share those with you at another point if I have that opportunity. What I would say for you is think about what you're going to do in relation to what is illegal federally and what we need to do in our state. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
And the chair thanks the gentleman. All right. Second person speaking on the BR would be Representative Van, the lady from Jefferson.
Not in the House of Representatives. You're in the Senate. You're in the Senate. You're in the House. But I'm trying to speak up for your bill.
I appreciate you.
I thank you. Now, listen, Representative Ball, I don't often come here to support anything that you Republicans do. But on this right here, I'm glad you brought this bill. And I very seldomly say that. I listened to the gentleman read off all of these letters. But to date, not one of those letters have reaped the benefit or given a benefit to these parents and the people who need it the most. Not the medical association, not the police association, not one single person has found a cure for the illnesses that this particular bill will help to assist to bring some type of relief to these citizens here in the state of Alabama. Not one of them. Not one. He even went as far as to speak to the one whose husband was the medical examiner. Not one time have I ever seen anybody die in the state of Alabama, and as many people as I have represented in the Birmingham City Municipal Court, South Court, which is the jail court, I've never, not one time, heard of anybody, not a one of my clients in the last 20 years say that they have or had anybody else to die of an overdose of marijuana. Fentanyl, heroin, as they pronounce it on the street, is pronounced heroin on the street, not heroin. But I've never one time. Now maybe you can enlighten me.
Well, actually, with a lady.
Yes.
Actually, there's one case in history that we've found where a fellow in New Orleans died. He was a homeless, indigent kind of fella, and the doctor put marijuana overdose on it. He didn't have an autopsy or anything, but as far as I know, that's the only document.
And he would have to go back in. I would have to be there on that table with him for him to, and I know some folks that smoke some real marijuana, some perk. I know some folks that get it up, okay? I mean, they wake up smoking, they go to bed smoking, in between time smoking marijuana, and I know for a fact if these people haven't died from an overdose of marijuana, nobody will die from an overdose of marijuana. I'm talking about some folks that can show you what to do with some marijuana now. So I don't know where all of this foolery is coming from, and I'm gonna let them have that. That's their right to have it. But I'm just talking about if they can show, somebody here can show me one time where someone has come up with a cure for the ailments or the ails of these particular issues that we're talking about. Now, I'm not going out there saying sell marijuana to everybody on earth. That's not what I'm talking about down here. I believe that it needs to have a regulation. I don't have a problem with that aspect. So I don't want anybody saying that I'm saying that it's a free-for-all for anybody to go out and smoke marijuana. I don't smoke. Every now and then I think about it though. and dealing with y'all down here. Oh yeah. Yeah, I need a hit or two. Oh yeah. Roll it up right now. But I remember even saying to this gentleman in here, and I don't have the best of relationships, Representative Farley, I remember saying to him that day, when those people came into that judiciary, I believe, and the words I used was, these people need help R-E-T now. Not right now, but now. Now, that's right. That's a slang term for right now. But I'm just being at a point, I think we need to do something. I think this is a good start. We will never be able to fully regulate no drug in this state, in this country. Not one. I see bills coming here time and time again. Y'all have named 100,000, 11 million bills after somebody's child that done died, after this person who went from the cigarettes, we regulated the cough syrup. I see more people still walking around with cough syrup than a little bit. It ain't never stopped nobody from making dope. It's in my neighborhood, and I live in a fairly nice neighborhood. And I'm thankful for that. But I know around my neighborhood somewhere, somebody has a meth lab in a house that looks almost just as nice as mine. So I'm just using this as an example. We can do whatever we do, and we can hold this bill up. They can vote it up or vote it down, but the realization is there is a need. These people have real needs that nobody in this room, in this chamber, as well intended as it may be, can ever understand. Now, my biggest concern is, of course, how does the licensing component and aspect of it work? So can you help me to understand that portion of it? Because I haven't really had as much time to treat this bill as I normally would. But I put my good eye on it as you continue to get beat up over it.
Well, the important thing about this about this bill is that it will create a commission of people with the proper expertise, and the licensing will be basically controlled by them. There is limits to the amount of license that can be had.
Mm-hmm.
There will be there's a lot of separation in this. There will be dispensaries, there will be growers, and processors.
Does this mean, but this is the thing I'm trying to get an understanding, will the license holders of those individuals who are already in the CBD business automatically have the right to this license?
No. They will have to go through a separate process, application process, and then they will have to go to the commission.
Okay, then my next question is, what is that minimum amount as it relates to not the investment aspect, but I guess that threshold amount that a person should be able to qualify with regards to the monies? It's I can't remember what the terminology in the bill is, but there's a bare minimum amount.
Right, there is an amount in the bill.
Yes, sir. What do you know what that is?
Well, not off the numbers don't stick in my head real well. I have to
when
look
I
those
come back
things
up
up.
here, hopefully you'll have it for me.
All right. Well, I can get it.
Okay, because I would like to know that, because I don't care what we deal with here. At the end of the day, whatever we're dealing with in this state, for somebody, it may not be for us, because there are some fairly good people in here. There are some people who have to work. There are some people who need to work. There are some people who want to work, and there are some people who do not have to work in this chamber, in this house. And we got that. At the end of the day, whatever we do, it may not affect us, but it's benefiting or impacting somebody else's bottom line, number one. That's the world we live in. But if you could get me that number, I would like to know.
We'll be glad to.
I would appreciate it. But I just, again, wanted to rise and say that I have an appreciation for this bill. No, I do not agree with everything in the bill, but I do believe it's a start. And I do believe that for me, just to be able to give people in need a sense of support with regards to this. You know, my biggest trouble started over a marijuana bill that a former deceased representative basically came into a meeting and basically said that the reason you have marijuana laws is because of black folks. And it started downhill from there with me in the House of Representatives. But I'm not standing here today to advocate for any race of people, but I defend my position 4 years ago, and this man has gone on with wherever he's gone on to. But I just simply say that I think that this is a good bill. I'm hoping that somebody will at least attempt to understand what the premise of this bill really means, and that if we're really about trying to help somebody, we would do it by voting yes on this bill. And this will probably be the only time I come and advocate for anything that a Republican brings. I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
And the chair thanks the lady. All right, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Jackson County, Representative Haynes, third person speaking on the BIR.
He did.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I just got a few questions.
All right.
The hemp bill, what was that, Lenny's Law that you had in 2016?
Well, no, that wasn't a hemp bill. That was CDB oil. That was actually very limited. The purpose of that
Over here,
was.
Mr. Ball.
Sir?
I'm over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking for you.
That's okay.
Howdy.
I'm so thin, I'm hard to see.
Yeah, you are. You are undercover there.
But,
Well, you know, it's one of the things, if you're looking for something, if you're looking in the wrong direction, you won't find it.
I understand, but,
Yes, sir.
but could you tell me the difference in that bill and this one?
Well, all Lenny's Law did, Lenny's Law merely said that if a person possessed the oil for certain diseases, that they could not be prosecuted for it. It was decriminalization of this oil, low THC oil. It did not even provide a way for them to get it, to have access to it. It was very, very limited. Decrim, only very, very, very low levels of THC.
Okay, you have to forgive me now. I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. But when you talk about the THC levels, hemp CBD oil versus marijuana CBD oil, do they have the same qualities as far as relieving pain?
Okay, the hemp plant has THC in it, very, very low levels, very low levels. And in some cases, the CDB oil can help some, but then there are some other things where there's not enough THC in it to cause the CDB to interact. And understand, I'm not a doctor. This is what Dr. Stavarsky and many others have tried to help me to understand, that the THC and the CDB have to work together, and it depends on the degree, the balance between the two depends on the ailment that's being treated. So there's actually, since we did Lenny's Law and Carly's Law, a lot of that is accessible over the counter, free. Now, what is available over the counter right now for some children like Lenny or baby Charlotte, they need a higher dose of THC to work with that CDB to help them control their seizures, among many other things. And one of the things I do want to point out, this doesn't just regulate the marijuana, but it regulates certain strands of hemp that have higher levels of THC.
Well, is there going to be a limit on the level of THC with the marijuana?
There is a limit. In this bill there is and understand, people have to know we're not talking about smokables. We're not talking about we're talking about controlled dosages. It would be very difficult under this degree, under this bill, for somebody to smoke pot and have they can't smoke pot, but to get the amount of dosage of THC that they would get from buying a bag of dope and smoking it. This is a medicinal quality of product that is controlled with the various strains as far as the levels that could be used for different diseases, if that makes sense to you.
Well, sort of. I mean,
okay.
You could have been a snake oil salesman.
No, I don't think so. I have a conscience.
Well, I'm just kidding.
I know you are.
I have friends that since CBD oil was made legal from hemp, that got off of painkillers. One fella has anxiety attacks. He had them. He just gets nervous and tore up over nothing. But he takes the CBD oil from the hemp, and it's took care of his problem. It's hard for me to understand how, other than the feeling, just the feeling that the higher level of THC is going to give, I don't see how the marijuana CBD oil is going to differ from the hemp oil when it comes to relieving pain. My own dad had trouble with his legs for years. He's 89 years old, still going strong, but he has leg pain. And I have a friend in Tennessee. He's a fireman, still an active fireman, but he's opened up several stores called Farm to Med, and I'm not trying to advertise for him, but my point is I went to him and bought a little old jar, a little small jar of salve, little like an ointment. And my dad had been using witch hazel, rubbing witch hazel on his legs, every night. And I bought him a little jar of it. And it's very expensive. I mean, it's just a little bitty small jar, about $40. But hey, I'll do anything for my dad, So I bought one, and after about a week, I said, "Hey, Pop, how's that stuff I bought you? Is it working?" He said, "Well, all I can tell you is that my legs don't hurt." So the hemp, what they get from the hemp is already working for so many people. It's already working for so many people. It's just hard for me to understand how marijuana differs from hemp. You have to forgive me because I don't know these things, and that's why I'm up here asking these questions.
They are both cannabis. And quite frankly, this bill is medical cannabis in all its forms. And actually, marijuana is the main difference between marijuana and hemp is the amount of THC. And it's just like some things you can buy over the counter. And quite frankly, when I first started with Carly's Law, you couldn't buy this over the counter. You could be prosecuted for possessing this.
Right.
And there's some people that oppose that tooth and toenail who now use it on a regular basis and recognize what this is trying to do is to take the stronger cannabis plant with more THC and allow it to be controlled under certain and regulated so that doctors can use it in a way of in collaboration with their patients in a way that can help them for things that so many other of our current synthesized medicines are failing at.
Okay, in the bill, I got through about half of it, and I'm sorry I hadn't had a chance to read the entire bill through from one end to the other. But in one part of the bill, it says it's not the Alabama legislature's intent for this to go into recreational marijuana. Is that true? Isn't that in the bill?
Absolutely. I can rest assured, you can rest assured, and I can say in no uncertain terms that a step toward recreational marijuana is not part of the intent of this bill. Senator Melson, it's not his intent of the bill. I will say this full ban that keeps this out. There's one side that's for banning it for anybody, and a lot of the opposition comes of concern about recreation.
Let me run this by you right quick.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
have much time.
Yes, sir.
And I really feel like you and Senator Melson's got your heart in the right place. I really do. But when I come back, would you take a friendly amendment that says that the state of Alabama shall never go to recreational marijuana? Would you be willing to accept that for this bill and let the members vote on it?
Here's the reason I will not. Well, there's several reasons. One of them is that that recreational debate, we can't control. Even if we put that in the bill, if somebody 10 years down the road and listen, there are people that will be in this body that will that will be tweaking on this later, long after I'm gone. And that will be for future legislatures to decide. What I'm concerned about right now is doing the right thing now for the most people. I'm not.
And it really wouldn't be any harm in it then if you think they may remove it later.
Well, just to be frank.
And the time has expired.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think we'll have plenty
Like a
of time.
bad check, I'll be back.
We'll have plenty of time to talk more. All right, Chair recognizes Representative Howard, gentleman from Hale. Fourth person speaking on the BIR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What a gentleman you. You know, we live in a country where almost 17 veterans commit suicide every day. 17 commit suicide. We live in a country where we have been into some extended, drawn-out wars. And there's a lot of research out there that says that medicinal marijuana helps with PTSD and also with chronic pain. So if we don't do anything, we should at least look out for those men and women that put their lives on the line for this country. And we all know that the intention here is not to legalize marijuana. It's to help some people that really need some help. And thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you.
All right, members, the question before us now is going to be on the adoption of the BIR on Senate Bill 46. If you are in favor of the BIR, your vote will be aye. If you're opposed, your vote is no. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. All the members voted. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. There are 69 yeas, 31 nays, 1 abstention, and the BR is adopted.